Welcome to Disruptive Successor, a show for next generation leaders in family businesses and entrepreneurs who want to disrupt the status quo and take their existing business to a whole new level. We all know that what got us here isn't going to get us there. This show will provide inspiration, advice, and resources to help you create massive impact. This podcast is sponsored by myself, Jonathan Goldhill, and my company, the Goldhill Group, where we provide coaching for growing companies. I'm Jonathan Goldhill, and my purpose is simple: to guide entrepreneurial leaders in family businesses towards more freedom and fulfillment. I want entrepreneurs to get clarity around the changes that will make them and their businesses more successful so they can experience the same freedom I've enjoyed in my life. Our proven practices challenge business owners to think differently about their business and how they're running it, and quite literally become game changers in our clients' companies. Learn more at thegoldhillgroup.com website, where you can schedule your free strategy session. Hi, it's Jonathan Goldhill, and welcome back to another episode of the Disruptive Successor Show. We know succession planning is a topic many of our listeners want to understand in practical terms. Today, my guests are the CEO and the operations manager of Athena Executive Services. Gina Cotner and Dorian Zarbakhsh are two people that have been working together, and they are going through the succession planning process. Now, while Gina has her firm that pairs virtual executive assistants around the United States that are swamped and with successful entrepreneurs and executives, and has a team of high caliber executive assistants who work part-time from home, taking many tasks and projects off the plate of successful people, leaving them free to spend their time where they are needed most. And by the way, this is something that I have been using on and off since 2004, and a big believer. And I don't think family businesses use executive assistants and remote virtual assistants often enough. Now, while Gina has worked remotely for over 15 years on national and international teams, what's really interesting about today's episode is that Dorian, her operations manager, from a different generation of in terms of age, is being groomed as a successor to take over the business. And what we're going to talk about today is exactly the dynamic that goes on sometimes between parent and adult child, but certainly between one generation of business owner and the next, where there's conflict, struggle, concerns around doing things differently. And as I've always said, what got you here isn't going to get you there. You're going to need new tools, new technology, new people, new processes. And so that's what today's show is about. So Gina and Dorian, welcome to the show today.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, Gina, I'm going to start with you. Why don't you give us the backstory of your firm, just so we have some context, and maybe the context of when you started this business. Did you have any kind of an exit in mind? Because some entrepreneurs, they get into a business and thinking, okay, I'm going to exit this at a certain point. Here's going to be my exit. So we want to understand the backstory and how you got to where you are today with this succession concept.
Yeah. Well, no, I did not have this idea in mind. That sounds really awesome. Maybe next time around, maybe in my next business, I will. Let's see. So how Athena Executive Services came to be, I had been an entrepreneur of just small little solopreneur businesses. I had left corporate America, but nothing was really taking off, and I was just kind of eking by. And I found myself in the middle of a separation and a divorce, and I got financially scared. The house that I owned with my husband was in jeopardy of going through foreclosure. And I just one day said, I just need a job. I need a pretty easy job. I'd need to show up somewhere, have some work to do some work, and have some money show up in my bank account. That's just all I wanted. And a friend of mine was posted a job for an EA on Facebook, and I thought, I know her. I think I could work for her, and I think I could be an executive assistant. All right, that'd be good. It's not exactly what I went to college to go do, but at the time that sounded like that'd be good. So I became her executive assistant. She was a CEO of a recruiting firm. And soon, like after about 3 months, she sold the office or got out of her office lease, and the entire team was working from home. So there I was an EA for a CEO. I was working from home, and I really loved it. And I did that for a few years, and then her business dwindled out. She didn't need me anymore. At the same time, my father was going to pass away, and we knew ahead of time that was likely to happen. So I went and spent the last 6 weeks of his life with him. And that was a sacred, important time. And then I went home and I mourned for 2 or 3 months. And then I said, all right, I'm ready. I think I'm ready to work. I think I'm ready. I'm going to go find another CEO to be an EA for. And I rustled the bushes. And this woman named Tiffany said, yeah, CEO of my company definitely needs you. And I started working for this guy named Darren and managed his calendar, managed his inbox, went to his office every now and then, opened up some mail, cleaned up his office, ordered a couch long enough for him to sleep on in the middle of the day, all these things. And then Tiffany came back to me a few months later and said, I'm going to need you in the next quarter. So if you could plan ahead, that'd be really good. And I said, Tiff, I'm full. Like, I don't have any more bandwidth. I'm full. And she said, okay, well, no problem. Just find me somebody like you.
Okay.
Yes, so you can start to hear the last chapter. Yeah, and we're off to the races. But I was pretty adamant that I was not going to be an entrepreneur. So she said, you should really open this as a business. And I said, I don't want to. And she said, yeah, you should. I said, I don't want to. And we put our heads together, and we both knew Dorian. Dorian was younger then than she is now. And she was still in really her first adult job and living at home and not married yet. And I said, Tiffany, if we pluck Dorian out of her nice little corporate job she is in, her first adult job, you've got to be a really good person to work for. And I've got to be a really good coach. Like, we can't mess up her young adult life.
Right.
And so someday Dorian will have to tell the Athena origin story from her point of view. So I make up what happened. Tiffany called you and you said yes, is the short of it.
Very short of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so she started being Tiffany's EA, and I was coaching her. And then Tiffany came to me again and said, the guys in sales are wasting a bunch of time on admin work, and you need to find me somebody else, and you should just get over yourself and open this as a business. And I did.
There you go. And the rest is history. That was 15 years ago, I guess.
That was 8. Yeah, that was
ago.
about 8
Okay.
now. Yeah, 2016. And then I worked myself out of a job and turned over being Darren's EA to the second person on staff named Allison. And then found the next EA and the next client, and the next EA and the next client. And we are now about 30 clients and about 25 executive assistants. And then in the last 5 years, 3 to 5 years, I've been turning over processes in the company. So now Jennifer, I have 2 managers. Dorian's just one of them. The successors are really Jennifer and Dorian. And Jennifer and Dorian now run 95% of the day-to-day operations. And I work about 5 hours a week and play a lot of pickleball.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Okay.
And
that's what people do, folks, when they get to our age. They play a lot of pickleball when they retire or close to it. All right. So I want to talk about the challenges. Like, let's get into the really mucky stuff. This is where, you're a Gen X business owner. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yes.
And Dorian is a millennial. And this is probably the most common dynamic that I see. It's what I wrote about in my book. It's, the Gen X, or a lot of baby boomers are now looking at like exiting. The baby boomers maybe hung around a little longer because of whether, downturns in whether stock or real estate markets, this kind of thing happens. But the transition to someone who doesn't yet own the business, the mindsets are very different, right? If you're a farmer, you're trying to preserve the farm. You don't want the barn to burn. You don't want your your millennial to take out a bank loan and bet the farm on a new product, a new market, a new set of customers, a new service, a new technology, whatever those big capital expenditures might be. You want to preserve the status quo because you hopefully want to get maybe an annuitized kind of income stream coming out of it. And so this is one of the challenges that I see, one of the tensions that I see in families where there's debate and discussion and there's a lot of some people call it the sticky baton syndrome where there's a lot of pulling of the baton, you can trust us, mom and dad, we've made good decisions up until now. We're not going to do anything crazy, but the adult is like, yeah, but so let's talk about some of that from each of your perspectives. What's the good? What's the bad? What's the ugly? Let's start with the good. Because there's an upside. The good, there's got to be the good's got to outweigh the bad, and the ugly, because it's got to be upside. This makes sense.
Yeah.
So what's the good from each of your perspective? Gina, you go first.
Yeah, I was gonna say you just heard my voice. Maybe Dorian would go first, but
that's fine. We already know you're playing pickleball and only working 5 hours a week. That's got to be pretty good, unless you're not getting better at pickleball. That's got to be pretty frustrating. But or you twist an ankle. God, people get hurt in pickleball, believe it or not. And so, all right. So Dorian, let's hear from you. What's the good?
Well, the good is with Gina, I definitely have she's ready to give things away.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, all right, oh, you want to look at implementing Slack? Why can't we do text message? That's what we've done for 7 years. I'm like, all right, but Gina, it's so much better on Slack because then people can just be on Slack on their computer and they don't need to get pinged when they're outside with their families. Mm-hmm. It's like, no. And I'm like, all right. And then I go away for a week and then I come back. And I say, so Gina, I've looked at Slack and it really doesn't cost us any money. And I've seen the difference it would make for the team. And she's like, no, I don't know about it. I'm like, all right, but I go away. And then the next week I come back. I'm like, all right, Gina, why don't you want to do Slack? And it's normally, I don't want to learn that. I'm like, all right, fair. You don't have to learn that. You know that I'm going to be running that side of the world, and I will let you know if anything is falling through the cracks, if there's any smoke, if the barn starts burning down, you'll be the first to know. And she'll be like, all right, fine, why don't you go give it a try? We can test it out. And if not, we can backpedal. Cool. So that's the sticky where Gina's like, I've learned the routine of how it goes after a few years where I'll say, here's my bright idea. And I know I'm going to get a no. I just know. She's like, why do we need to do this any different than what I've done in the last 7 to 8 years? That's what got us here, Dorian. I'm like, yes. We had the same conversation around AI where ChatGPT started taking over most of the communication. And Gina's like, but why? Why can't people write emails anymore? I'm like, well, Gina, it takes 3 minutes for ChatGPT to write something, for you to prompt it the right way, and then you go and edit it, and there you go. You now have this nicely crafted email. And it took a while until that Gina's like, all right, I got it. This is the way it's going. Cool. But it does take, it's like that, as you said, it's that sticky baton where it's a little bit of a push and pull.
Yeah. I think the newest, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just thinking, what are other areas? So Slack was one example. But technology, probably the implementation of any kind of technology, whether it's a CRM, and you're probably, Gina, used to doing things on, spreadsheets, or maybe worse, back in the older days, it would have been 3x5 cards in a Rolodex. I mean, so technology has been certainly one area, and maybe the most significant for your business. Is there other stuff that becomes really sticky that's been challenging? Maybe we get into the bad here.
Yeah. So Gina, in her very wise ways, pointed to me that, hey, Dorian, I think you should go find the next generation to get up underneath you. Because before you know it, your brightest ideas are no longer very bright. There is new things out there. So I'm in the process of training one of our team members to take over part of the vetting process right now. And, I train her, I coach her, she goes and does one, I listen to the recording, and we go back and forth. And then I come to Gina. I'm like, all right, Gina, Brittany's ready. And she's like, but what about this? And what about that? But that's not the way I created that. How did you do this? And then that's really where it came to, like, that was I would say the bad Gina. Let me know if you disagree, where there was a moment where I sat there and I was like, okay, well, I don't know if I can turn over what you turned over 7 years, that what you created 8 years ago and turned over to me in the last 2 to 3 years. And I don't know if that's applicable anymore.
Mm.
Yeah. That was probably one of the tricky ones. I remember that because I remember feeling myself fighting for like, well, did you go over this with her? Do you remember when I went over that do you remember how hard I worked with you to have you learn that? Like, are you doing that with Brittany, or are you just doing light, like turnover light? And I was just edgy, right? I'm not usually edgy with Dorian. And then I had this epiphany either later that day or the next time we spoke. And I said, wait a minute. Dorian has vetted and screened and selected and onboarded probably more of our staff or more body count than I did in the years when I did it. And that was kind of a big eye opener. Like, oh, Gina Cotner. Okay, that's nice that you founded this. But is Dorian not an expert now in something that actually you have not done for a long, long time? And if she says some steps in this process are outdated, I think you need to give her vote more weight, WEIGHT, than your own vote. That was kind of a big thing in the last 30 days.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that some of the struggle is that as older people, what we have to offer is wisdom and experience. But, younger people are learning at such a fast pace these days that we might have, and in my business, we say that person's got 1 year experience for 30 years, been doing that, versus someone who has 30 years experience where it's constantly changing. So a younger person has learned a lot of the stuff that we've taught them and forgotten some of it. And they don't have necessarily the wisdom to think from a more of a 30,000 foot view or, big picture and a more holistic. So there's this balance of having the wisdom and the mentoring needed to be there, but eventually it's obsolete because we don't do things that way anymore. We've changed that, right?
Yep, right. And my role, from all the things I've read and experienced, I have it written down on the top of my to-do list, and it pops up about once a week to remind me. I see my role is manage risk, oversee strategy, and protect the brand.
Right.
So mine is contextual, and I got to stay up there, like you said, at that 30,000 foot level from the contextual point of view,
right.
The why, the vision of it all, the how it gets executed. I got to keep letting go of my grip on how it gets executed. Oh, you're going to use a sauna for that? Okay. All right.
Right.
What do I care? As long as I can still manage risk, oversee strategy, and protect the brand. Manage risk,
Oversee strategy, protect the brand. That's great. Do you think that's applicable to all businesses or most businesses? I imagine that is. I like that.
I think so. It's actually what I read once, that is the job of the board, an advisory board.
Yes.
Which I said to myself, I'm going to soon become an advisory board of one. I kind of am an advisory board. So I am the CEO, but I'm also the advisory board. So it's, keeping my I think we the founders, owners, we got to keep our eye on the context of it all, the why of it all, the vision of it all more, because that's the harder thing to turn over. If Dorian can come from where I'm coming from, have the why that I have the vision that I have, she might even come up with better execution than I ever thought of. Probably will.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my biggest, I think, development point now that they're so trained is, okay, are they coming in when she's vetting and screening and she's turning over the vetting and screening process to Brittany? Is Brittany going to do it from a place where our brand comes from? You know, if she's coming from where our brand comes from and what our brand represents, she's probably going to get the job done really well.
So I think the challenge, as you pointed out earlier to me, is that business owners have to offer trust and patience regularly and generously. And the emphasis on each of those words, but I love the generously, because the default might not be to be generous. It might be to think my way was better. Why do we have to do it differently? So yeah, those are words that come from you actually, and probably resonate real strongly with you. They're kind of almost like core thinking, core mindset, core values, or something that you have to hold near and dear. That's a subtext to those three things: manage, protect the brand, right? The strategy. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I really give my managers more trust than they deserve. And when I'm collaborating with other business owners and we're having these conversations, that's often what I preach is like, give them more room to run than you think, because it forces my managers now to have to think. It forces them out into the weeds. And I want them out into the weeds because when the going's good and the clients are happy and the applicants are brilliant, I'm not needed.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to prepare them and I want them to be critical thinkers. They know this is like my big buzzword. Like, when are you doing critical thinking? When are you doing thinking about this?
Mm-hmm.
So I like to give them a lot of room to go get into the weeds. And it's scary from my point of view. Sometimes I just sit there and just have to kind of grit my teeth and go, okay, they said they're going to update me on Monday. Gina Cotner, you're going to have to just wait till Monday and find out. Is there smoke? Did they burn down the back half of the house? Is everything okay? Did they come up with a solution that is nothing you would have thought of and perhaps you disagree with? And see what happens. And I believe and have experienced 9 times out of 10, what they do is great. And when they do it and they got the bandwidth given by me to do it, then they experience themselves as triumphant. Like, oh, we got this. Dorian and Jennifer will say to each other, we got ourselves through this mess. Yay us. But they get that yay us experience because Gina didn't swoop in and save the day.
That's my next question. So Dorian, you've obviously noticed over time, you and Jennifer, that Gina would swoop in and save the day, but I imagine that became less and less over time. And there was a shift. Did it have to be pointed out for that shift to occur? Did she just start doing it? Did you
I think she slowly started doing it over time and we just didn't realize. And then we've definitely had we totally burned down the kitchen. And Gina is there and she's like, well, yep, that kitchen is burned now. So what are you going to do about it? And she'll just sit there. And those moments are, that mistake is never, ever, ever, ever going to happen ever again on our watch. But what's been really great is our experience of ourselves is now that we are the business owners, right? Like, fast forward 3 years, fast forward 5 years, whenever we are the owners of the business, it's not going to be like, oh my God, now we're the owners. No, we've been operating the business as if it's ours for X amount of years already.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question, I think she did it very sneakily without us noticing. And it's been an amazing experience for our development. And I think part of it's given Gina, it's really inside that protecting of the brand part of her job, where she's like, okay, yeah, I can go and play pickleball for, I'm going to dramatize it, 1,000 hours a week. Dorian and JT are going to hold the fort down. And on Monday, I will learn what I need to learn.
Yeah.
Gina, you've become all about empowering your team members, which in this case, we'll translate it to family members, right? And family businesses, to make discoveries for themselves, doing it by leading with probing questions rather than a set of instructions. You sound like a coach. Did you learn this from reading books? Did someone coach you on this stuff? Did you figure it out organically? What was your process to not just figure it out, but then do it?
Boy, that's a good question. Yes, I would say forcing yourself to lead with questions is really challenging. And all three of us have done a lot of personal development, and I personally did a lot of personal development with a company called Landmark. And at Landmark, I got to do a ton of coaching. And so, I got to participate there at really high levels and coach lots and lots of people. And in the process, I discovered through people who were mentoring me and coaching me, and I would realize, like, the people I looked up to, I noticed they resisted the urge to impart their wisdom on me, and instead would always ask questions, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Inquiry and question. And it takes a lot more brain power to ask a question than it does to impart my 5 pieces of wisdom, right? That whole thing of teaching somebody to fish versus giving them a fish.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit about where it came from. And when Dorian says, in that 5 minutes there ago, when she said, and that's never going to happen again on our watch, never. What she means is, like, she and Jennifer experienced the pain, let's just say, the like, oh, that was awful. I can't believe we had to fire that client. Oh, like, I made them go through that. I literally had to have Jennifer on the phone and go, okay, now I'm going to help you craft that. And now you need to hit send. And I know you're scared and you have to hit send. And whatever comes back at you, I got it. I think part of it is that I know ultimately, and they know ultimately, I'm somehow the mental and emotional safety net. Like, on that client that we had to fire, I said, you hit that button, and no matter what she comes back with, I got you. If she comes back with, attorney, blah, blah, blah. Okay, good. I got that. I will. You're not on your own is one of the biggest things that gives them the opportunity to be at risk. I want them to be at risk. I want them to be sleepless over the fact that they failed to get the contract signed by the client in a timely manner. Like, they made a mistake, and I make them kind of deal with the pain that comes from their mistake while loving them, right? While not stopping my appreciation of them, but also saying, okay, what do you need? But then in the end result is what you just heard Dorian say, where they go, oh, Gina, that's never happening again. And I know it won't ever happen again because they personally don't want to ever experience that again.
So I'm hearing the voice of a couple of clients in my head right now, and they're pushing back on you virtually here. And they're saying, okay, I get you're the emotional and mental and emotional safety net, but I'm the financial safety net for these kids. And, like, this is really, like, my money, my asset, my business. And so, it's one thing to be the mental and emotional, but financial safety net, that's really all it's about. Because a lot of the baby boomer type mindset of a business is the purpose of business to make money. And, that's not the mindset of a millennial business owner. The purpose of the business is not to make money. The purpose of the business is to give you maybe freedom in your life, or also to connect with your purpose. So, yeah, where does financial fall into this equation? Maybe for you, if you want to share, have you thought about, or have you transferred some of the ownership or equity? I think that's a conversation that's sometimes difficult in family businesses. Are we going to just gift it? Do we have them buy it? Do we just hold on to it in perpetuity until we die? And they just, do they continue to pay us a salary or a dividend? I mean, these are difficult conversations. So where do you weigh in on this one?
And the financial and tax laws may be different for family, right?
Right.
So when we cross that bridge, we'll have to cross it a little bit differently. So, let's see, there's a lot in your question. The financial protection side, that is still, yes, I get very nervous. It is still, I am the sole owner, and we are not beholden to anybody, right? We don't have shareholders. We don't have investors. We don't have debt. We have what I started with $5,000 in the bank. Like, that's what I started with, and then grew from there. So there are times when, we've been taken out of savings, and then we got to take out of savings, and then we got to take out of savings, and I get nervous and I go, wait, what? Oh, ooh, ah, But that is probably one of the moments where I had to muster the most courage to say to them, I think it was in our January retreat, I said, all right, you guys, what do you say should be the minimum in savings? What do you say? Like, again, I am like, I want you to join me in the painful, critical thinking that it takes to run a business. Like, what is your thought? I have my thoughts. What do you guys say? And why do you say what you say? So yes, there are moments where I get nervous. And when I talk about letting them burn part of the house down, I do know, and they do know, if push comes to shove, I will protect my asset. This is the greatest asset I have, called this company. And I will swoop in, and I will bring in the fire hose, and I will kick them out if I have to. But so yes, the nervousness is there. And if I thought that something really financially awful, they were going to make a decision that was going to really impact us horribly financially, I would just put my foot down and say, no, decline. I decline, denied. It's pretty rare that I have to do that, but the nervousness is there. And then were you also asking about how we plan on doing the turnover financially?
It's not so important, but I wanted to point out that is a big rub for business owners that are transitioning either from one generation to the next, or to an inside buyer, if you would. Right. An outside buyer, it's like a real estate transaction. It's arm's length. It's, it's driven by outside attorneys, real estate professionals, whatever the assets are. But inside, it's a bit different and a bit more difficult. And Gina, I feel like that first client that you had, and I'm going to tell you now, I think, and Gina, you'd love to help engage other Gen Xers who are trying to pass on the family business about how to download their success and wisdom, and also release the reins of how business is done at the same time to pave a smoother, longer runway for succession. I think you're still young. I think this is something that you have to do. I think it's maybe a book. It's maybe taking on some clients who are going through the succession planning process. It's maybe teaming up with a professional like myself who is having these, I'm really more of a growth coach, like, how to scale for the next gen. But these conversations, I think that I play well between the two generations. I think I'm young and hip enough that I speak the younger person's language and tech. And I think I'm old enough to understand you got to protect the asset. But like, you might have another business here, and you might have to pick up a client or two and help them through the same thing, right? Because it's not enough just
Yeah.
to get on the pickleball court,
Yeah.
It's not like
Yeah.
golf where it's like measurable, like your handicap's getting better and better with no end game in mind, right? We're not going to make money at golf. It's just like it's a total time suck. Um,
Yeah.
for some,
Yeah.
it's pleasurable. For others, it's painful. But
Yeah.
this is really
Well,
something that you have clearly a calling for. And I actually know of someone who I want, a couple of people who I want to listen to this episode because I think that these questions, this letting go of the heavy lifting and turning over the entire process of your business, that is something that some of these business owners have their arms crossed and are like they're kind of kicking and screaming, and yet at the other end they're like, no, I'm done, I'm ready to give this up. And it's this back and forth, it's almost like an ambivalence, and there's a lot of coaching there. So
yeah. Yeah. Well, that is what my year is about. I am only 52. So that is part of my problem. And maybe some other founders' problem is, okay, I'm not 72.
right.
I'm 52. So
Right.
now what is going to be my next career? Because I also realized one of the greatest assets to these ladies is me continuing to get out of the way, which in the beginning was really fun. And now
Right.
it's like, and I just had your realization. I just had maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I left them an audio message and I said, you guys, I think maybe I need to go consult. Like,
But also
I
it
think,
could be a brand sort of maybe either repositioning for you, or it could be another part of the dimension of the brand, which is that we help one generation transition to the next generation, and we coach them through that, and we team it up with people who we offload some of this stuff to, and some of it is offloading to the sons and daughters and family members, and some of it is like, no, we're not giving them your junky stuff, right? I had a client he's in his 70s and he is still like opening the mail, and that's something he wants to do because it gives him his finger on the pulse of what's coming in and what's coming out. I'm like, you know what? That's interesting. I think you should answer the phones too, by the way. And I think you should monitor all the emails that come in and out, because there's a lot of stuff that's coming in and out of your business. You might, by the way, yeah, no checks are coming in anymore. They're all coming in via digital. So if you're just like opening the mail to see what vendor bills or what notices, like you need to have processes around some of that stuff. I have a friend client who gets these notices from the government, and it's always like a surprise. I mean, like, what do you mean I didn't have to pay like the Department of state taxation for this? I didn't know about that. I mean, that's from 2021. No one's like, compliance is a increasingly more difficult parts of all of our businesses, and you can either be proactive or reactive. And a lot of business owners, small business owners, who are owners by maybe a little bit more default than design, like the design people are those who are going to, like, I'm building this business, I'm going to exit, I got to have all the people and processes, but like they're more, no, the processes are behind them. They're not leading the way. So I think this is really interesting, and it's got a lot of future and potential for you. So anyway, that was a lot of talking from me. Dorian, you're just full of smiles, and I can see you've got that young energy and excitement. What are your thoughts?
Um, yeah, I mean, it's so great because so we have three coaching programs that we offer. One is for EAs, one is for executives that don't have an EA, or they have an EA, but they're not very effective with their executive assistant. We have one that we coach both of them. And as you were speaking, I know Gina did leave that voice note about, I may just need to go mentor a few business owners through this process. I'm like, that might be another line item on that coaching page.
Let's go
Gina.
find some disruptive successors and let's coach them up, Gina. And let's
I
get
love it.
Dorian and her team to back us up with the resources that we need to
I
make
love
it happen.
I love it. I love it.
All right. Well, folks, this was a great show. Really enjoyable. A really different spin on your business, the executive assistant business, and succession planning. And I hope folks that those who are listening are taking away some of the key questions and comments that, as business owners, you have to offer trust and patience regularly and generously. And you have to lead with probing questions, not a set of instructions. You don't need to go to Landmark Forum to learn this. Like, this is what's being taught in entrepreneurs organization, in Vistage organizations, in peer groups. It's about using Gestalt to understand and share from your experience and pull out from people by, rather than giving them a set of instructions, dictating the process. Let them develop the process. Talk to them about the result that you want. And this is a lot of work that Gen X or exiting business owners need to think about and figure out as the next generation steps up, earns that trust, and demonstrates it all. So those are my final words. Anything you want to add?
No, just yes, yes, yes to all that.
Fantastic. And Dorian's like, she's shaking her head for everyone. All right, folks. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Disruptive Successor Show. Please share this with people who need to hear this message, and stay tuned for future episodes.
This podcast is sponsored by myself, Jonathan Goldhill, and my company, the Goldhill Group, where we provide coaching for growing companies. I'm Jonathan Goldhill, and my purpose is simple: to guide entrepreneurial leaders in family businesses towards more freedom and fulfillment. I want entrepreneurs to get clarity around the changes that will make them and their businesses more successful so they can experience the same freedom I've enjoyed in my life. Our proven practices challenge business owners to think differently about their business and how they're running it, and quite literally become game changers in our clients' companies. Learn more at thegoldhillgroup.com website, where you can schedule your free strategy session. Thank you for joining us on the Disruptive Successor Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, review, and share with a friend who would benefit from the message. If you're interested in picking up a copy of my book, Disruptive Successor, go to disruptivesuccessor.com.